Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Imagine you are floating in the vast, silent ocean of deep space. There is no wind here. There is no sound. There is only the gentle, eternal light of distant stars to guide you. We often look up at the night sky and find comfort in its permanence. We believe that the planets and their glowing halos will remain there forever, perfectly frozen in time. But the universe is a living, breathing entity, and sometimes the most beautiful things we know are quietly bleeding away in the dark. Recently, the James Webb Space Telescope turned its golden mirrors toward the crown jewel of our solar system, Saturn. What it found was not a picture of eternal peace, but a scene of slow, cosmic destruction. We always knew the rings were changing, but the reality is much worse than we feared. Tonight, we will drift millions of miles away from Earth, leaving our daily worries behind. We will witness a moon tearing apart a masterpiece. So, relax your shoulders, let your mind drift into the vacuum, and let us show you a secret that the cosmos has been trying to hide. Before we dive into the dark revelation captured by the James Webb Telescope, we must first understand the canvas of our story. Since the days of Galileo Galilei, who first pointed his primitive telescope at Saturn in the year 1610, humanity has been captivated by the planet's rings. Galileo thought they were ears, or perhaps smaller planets attached to the giant. Over centuries, our vision cleared. We learned that these magnificent structures are not solid disks, but billions of individual pieces of water ice, rock, and dust. They range in size from tiny grains of sand to massive boulders the size of mountains. For a long time, astronomers believed these rings were born at the very dawn of our solar system, 4.5 billion years ago. They seemed like permanent fixtures of the void. But as our technology grew, so did our understanding of cosmic mortality. In the 1980s, the Voyager missions caught the first whispers of a phenomenon called ring rain. Saturn's immense gravity, coupled with its magnetic field, was slowly pulling the icy particles out of orbit. Yet it felt like a distant problem, a slow leak in an endless ocean. That was, until now. The universe has a way of reminding us that nothing lasts forever. And as we look closer, we begin to see the invisible forces at play. But what happens when we look closer? The new golden eye of humanity. The James Webb Space Telescope, with its unparalleled infrared vision, recently pierced through the cold darkness to observe Saturn. It did not just see the reflected light of the sun, it saw the heat. It saw the subtle, invisible movements of gas and ice. Imagine looking at a pristine, snow-covered forest, only to put on special glasses and realize an underground fire is melting the snow from beneath. Webb captured the rings not as static bands, but as a turbulent, decaying ecosystem. The imagery reveals thick ribbons of frozen water plunging directly into the planet's upper atmosphere. The sheer volume of this cosmic waterfall is staggering, and it sets the stage for our dark discovery. The illusion of permanence. We often fall for the myth that Saturn's rings are as ancient as the planet itself. It is a comforting thought, a sense of cosmic stability. But Webb's data forces us to shatter this myth. The rings are surprisingly young. They might only be 100 million years old. To put that in perspective, when dinosaurs walked the Earth, Saturn was likely a naked gas giant, devoid of its iconic halo. The rings are not a permanent feature, they are a fleeting, temporary phenomenon, a beautiful accident of physics. Understanding this fragility makes the destruction we are about to witness even more poignant. Imagine a sandcastle built between the tides. The water is already rising. Introducing the silent architect of destruction. As Webb scanned the intricate layers of the rings, its gaze fell upon the moons. Saturn has over 100 moons, a chaotic family of icy worlds. But one moon in particular is playing a devastating role. This is Enceladus, a small, bright, icy sphere that looks incredibly peaceful from a distance. But Enceladus is hiding a violent secret beneath its frozen crust. It is a world of geysers, blasting water vapor and ice particles deep into space. We used to think Enceladus was merely feeding the rings, adding to their beauty. But the truth, illuminated by Webb, is far more complex and destructive. The invisible threads of gravity. How exactly does a moon destroy a massive ring system? To understand this, imagine holding a massive spider web. Now, imagine a heavy marble rolling just along the edge of it. The gravitational pull of Enceladus acts like an invisible thread, constantly tugging at the delicate ice particles in the rings. Every time this moon passes by, it creates a gravitational wave. These waves disrupt the perfect harmony of the ice boulders. They crash into one another. They lose their orbital momentum. And once that momentum is gone, the relentless gravity of Saturn takes over. The moon is not crushing the rings, it is pushing them off a cliff. Let us debunk a common misconception. When you look at pictures of Saturn, the rings look smooth, like grooves on a vinyl record. You might think you could glide across them like an ice rink. But if you were floating right inside the rings, it would look like a chaotic blizzard. Millions of jagged ice fragments tumbling in the dark. When the gravity of the moon disturbs them, this blizzard becomes a storm. Webb's sensors detected the aftermath of these collisions. As the ice chunks smash together, they shatter into microscopic dust. This dust is too light to maintain its orbit. It becomes incredibly vulnerable to the planet's immense magnetic forces. The phenomenon of the ring rain. This brings us to the terrifying mechanism of destruction. Ring rain. It is a poetic name for a violent process. As the moon's gravity creates chaos and the ice fragments turn to dust, Saturn's magnetic field acts like a vacuum cleaner. The dust becomes electrically charged by the sun's radiation. Once charged, it is grabbed by the magnetic field lines. Imagine millions of glowing, microscopic fireflies being sucked down an invisible funnel toward the planet's poles. This is the ring rain, and Webb has shown us that this downpour is happening at a rate that is deeply alarming. Cutting through the cosmic dust. How did Webb see this when other telescopes could not? Optical telescopes see the light bouncing off the large ice blocks, but Webb sees in the infrared spectrum. It can see the faint thermal glow of the electrically charged dust as it falls. Imagine looking at a rainstorm at night. You might not see the water falling, but if every drop was slightly warm, an infrared camera would show a glowing curtain of falling light. Webb saw this glowing curtain wrapping around Saturn. It provided the first direct, high-resolution evidence that the moon's gravitational disturbances are accelerating this fatal process. The sheer scale of the deluge. Let us put the volume of this ring rain into perspective. The amount of water ice falling into Saturn's atmosphere every single second is staggering. It is estimated to be around 10,000 kilograms per second. Imagine an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Now imagine all that water freezing into a fine mist and raining down on a planet, completely draining the pool in just half an hour. Now keep that rain falling constantly, day and night, for millions of years. The rings are literally bleeding out into the immense atmosphere of the gas giant. It is a slow hemorrhage in the vacuum of space. The role of the magnetic field. The magnetic field of Saturn is a fascinating trap. Without it, the dust created by the moon's gravitational bullying might just drift off into deep space. But the magnetic field lines curve inward, plunging directly into the upper atmosphere of the planet. The charged ice particles follow these invisible tracks like trains on a rail. Imagine a roller coaster plunging straight down into a sea of clouds. As the ice hits the atmosphere, it vaporizes, chemically altering the atmosphere of Saturn. Webb actually detected the chemical signature of this water vapor, proving that the rings are actively dissolving into the planet itself. The speed of the inevitable. The most shocking part of the James Webb discovery is not just that the rings are dying, but how fast it is happening. The gravitational interference from the moons is acting as a catalyst, speeding up the ring rain far beyond previous estimates. The rings are losing their mass at an unprecedented rate. Imagine an hourglass where someone has suddenly widened the hole at the bottom. The sand is pouring out faster than we ever calculated. This brings an uncomfortable truth to the forefront of astronomy. We are observing the rings of Saturn at a very specific, very lucky moment in cosmic history. Visualizing the microscopic collisions. Close your eyes and zoom in closer. Imagine floating right next to a boulder of ice the size of a house. For thousands of years, it has orbited peacefully. Suddenly, the gravitational tug of a passing moon subtly alters its path. It drifts just a few inches to the left. But in space, at tens of thousands of miles per hour, inches matter. It violently strikes a neighboring boulder. There is no sound, only a silent explosion of sparkling ice crystals. These crystals, now fractured, are immediately swept up by the magnetic currents. This silent destruction is happening trillions of times a second across the entire ring system. The long shadow of the moons. It is not just Enceladus. The entire chaotic dance of Saturn's moons creates a complex web of gravity. Moons like Mimas, known for its massive crater, also play a role. These moons cast gravitational shadows. Just as a mountain affects the wind patterns around it, these moons create ripples and waves in the rings. These waves, known as density waves, can be seen in the Webb images like ripples on a pond after a stone is thrown. But these ripples are not harmless. They compress the ice, increasing the rate of collisions and feeding the endless, hungry rain. The warming touch of a distant sun. We must also consider the role of our own star. Although Saturn is incredibly far from the Sun, its light still matters. Ultraviolet radiation from the Sun continuously bombards the rings. This radiation helps to electrically charge the ice dust, preparing it for the fatal plunge down the magnetic field lines. Imagine the Sun acting like a match, lighting the fuse of destruction. The Moon creates the dust, the Sun charges it, and Saturn's magnetism pulls it in. It is a perfectly synchronized cosmic machine designed to dismantle one of the greatest wonders of the universe. A change in colors. As the rings decay, they are also changing their appearance. Webb's sensitive instruments have noticed a subtle shift in the composition of the inner rings. As the brightest, purest water ice is sucked away into the planet, what is left behind? The rings contain small amounts of rocky material and darker organic compounds. As the ice vanishes, the rings will slowly lose their brilliant white and golden shimmer. They will become darker, murkier, more ghostly. Imagine a brilliant white painting slowly gathering dust and fading into shades of grey. The visual majesty of Saturn is already fading. The invisible sounds of the apocalypse. Space is a vacuum, so there is no sound as we know it. But if we translate the electromagnetic waves emitted by this process into audio, it is haunting. Instruments have recorded the radio emissions of the charged particles crashing into Saturn's atmosphere. It sounds like a strange, crackling hiss, like a harsh wind blowing across a desolate, icy plain. Imagine sitting in a warm room, listening to a blizzard rage outside the window. That is the sound of the rings dying. It is the sound of billions of tons of ice vaporizing in the dark. The extreme fragility of cosmic beauty. This entire phenomenon teaches us a profound lesson about the nature of the cosmos. We humans tend to look for permanence. We build monuments out of stone. We expect the stars to always be there. But the universe is a place of constant flux. The rings of Saturn are just a fleeting moment of balance between creation and destruction. They are as fragile as a soap bubble. And just like a bubble, they are beautiful exactly because they are about to burst. Webb has allowed us to see the needle that is pricking the surface. The contrast of calm and violence. When you look at the Webb images, the first thing you feel is a profound sense of peace. The soft glows, the dark background, the perfect spherical shape of the planet. It looks serene, but this is a grand cosmic deception. Beneath that tranquil image is a brutal, chaotic physics engine running at full speed. It is a paradox. The ultimate destruction of an entire celestial structure is happening completely silently, disguised as a masterpiece of art. It reminds us that in space, the most violent events often happen in the most profound silence. The invasion of micrometeorites. There is another antagonist in our story, acting as a catalyst alongside the moons. Tiny grains of dust from the outer solar system, called micrometeorites, constantly bombard the rings. These tiny invaders strike the large ice boulders at immense speeds. While the moon's gravity creates the waves that cause the big crashes, these tiny meteors are constantly sandblasting the rings, creating even more of the microscopic dust needed for the ring rain. Imagine a beautiful ice sculpture left outside in a sandstorm. Slowly but surely, the details are worn away into nothing. The stripping of the outer edges. The destruction is not happening evenly. The outer edges of the rings are suffering the most. The gravitational pull from the moons is strongest at the edges, acting like a cosmic scythe. As Webb looked at the outer boundaries, it saw them fraying, like the edges of an old, worn-out photograph. The particles here are being stripped away, making the rings slowly shrink inward. The grand diameter of the ring system is quietly retreating. It is a slow retreat, a silent surrender to the overwhelming forces of gravity and time. Shepherds turned wolves. In astronomy, we often call the small moons embedded in the rings shepherd moons. We believed they kept the rings neat and tidy, their gravity acting like a fence to keep the ice particles in line. But the James Webb data forces a darker perspective. These shepherds are also wolves. While they maintain the sharp edges of the rings in the short term, their constant gravitational meddling is ultimately what grinds the ice to dust, feeding the ring rain. The very things that give the rings their beautiful structure are also the agents of their eventual demise. A terrifying timeline. So how much time does Saturn have left with its beautiful crown? The calculations, updated by the new data, are sobering. The rings will likely be completely gone in less than 100 million years. In the lifespan of a human, 100 million years is unimaginable. But in the life of a planet that is 4.5 billion years old, it is less than a blink of an eye. If the history of Saturn was a 24-hour day, the rings only appeared in the last few minutes, and they will be gone before the hour is up. Dispelling the myth of a shrinking halo. You might think that the rings will just get thinner and thinner until they are a faint line. But physics tells a different story. As the mass of the rings decreases, the dynamic balance will fail completely. Once a certain amount of ice is lost, the remaining particles will lack the collective gravity to hold their intricate patterns. The rings will not just fade, they will collapse. The intricate gaps and divisions will vanish, turning into a chaotic, messy cloud of debris before finally being sucked down into the planet. The end will not be graceful. Looking up from the clouds of Saturn. Imagine for a moment that you could float in the upper atmosphere of Saturn, looking up at the sky. Right now, you would see a magnificent glowing arch stretching across the heavens, a bridge of ice reflecting the distant sun. But if you were to stand there 100 million years from now, the sky would be empty. You would only see the cold, distant stars. The grand arch would be gone, replaced by a gentle, invisible rain of the very last water molecules falling from the void. A sky stripped of its greatest monument. The naked giant. What will Saturn look like when the process is complete? It will look remarkably like Jupiter, a massive sphere of swirling gas and violent storms hanging alone in the dark. It will still be a majestic sight, but it will have lost its unique identity. it will be just another gas giant. The thought of a ringless Saturn is melancholic. It feels like a piece of cosmic history is being erased. The James Webb Space Telescope is essentially documenting the twilight years of this planetary wonder. A comparison with the neighbors. We must remember that Saturn is not the only planet with rings. Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune all have ring systems, but they are incredibly faint, made of dark dust rather than bright ice. We can barely see them. It is highly probable that these planets once had magnificent bright ring systems of their own, millions of years ago. But their moons and their gravity have already destroyed them. Saturn is simply the last giant standing. We are incredibly fortunate to exist in the exact sliver of cosmic time when Saturn's rings are still visible. The melancholic beauty of witnessing an end. There is a deep, profound beauty in watching something fade away. When we look at the new Webb images, we are not just looking at a planet, we are looking at a process of cosmic mortality. It is a reminder to appreciate the present moment. The universe does not keep things forever, it recycles them. The ice that falls into Saturn will become part of its deep, churning oceans of gas. The rings will not truly disappear, they will just change their form. They will become part of the planet they once orbited. Capturing the fading light. The golden mirrors of the James Webb Telescope are uniquely suited for this melancholic task. Webb was built to look back in time, to see the first galaxies form. But in turning its gaze to Saturn, it is showing us the future. It captures the very faint, long wavelength light of the dying rings with incredible tenderness. The images it sends back are like a soft lullaby for a dying world. Every pixel is a testament to human curiosity, our desire to understand not just how things are born, but how things inevitably end in the silent dark. A philosophical reflection on the void. As you drift through this narrative, consider your own place in the universe. We often stress about our daily lives, our small problems, but when you realize that even the rings of Saturn, structures so vast they can swallow Earth whole, are temporary, our problems shrink to the size of a single ice crystal. The universe operates on a scale of time and space that humbles us. It invites us to let go of our need for control, to just float, to accept that change is the only true constant in the infinite dark. Earth's fleeting privilege. The fact that human civilization emerged exactly when Saturn's rings are at their most visible is a beautiful coincidence. We have the privilege of pointing our telescopes up and seeing this masterpiece before the cosmos packs it away. It is a gift of timing. Our ancestors looked up and wondered. We look up and understand. And future civilizations, millions of years from now, will only know of the rings through our records. We are the lucky witnesses to this grand, silent tragedy. It is a thought that brings a deep, relaxing sense of gratitude. The final descent. And so the rain continues, unstoppable, silent. Every second, tons of ancient ice plunge into the swirling storms of the gas giant. The moons continue their chaotic dance, pulling the strings of destruction in the dark. The James Webb Space Telescope will eventually look away, pointing its golden eye toward other mysteries. But the slow fading of Saturn will continue in the cold vacuum. Imagine one single, final snowflake of ice, drifting down, crossing the threshold, melting into the immense atmosphere. The rings are dying, but they are doing so with an unmatched, terrifying grace. As we slowly begin to pull away from the chilling, beautiful orbit of Saturn, let the vastness of what we just witnessed settle into your mind. We journeyed into the dark, guided by the infrared vision of the James Webb Space Telescope, only to find that the most iconic structure in our solar system is quietly tearing itself apart. The relentless tug of its own moons and the invisible force of its magnetic field are pulling the icy rings down into the planet, a cosmic rain that will eventually leave Saturn bare. It is a humbling realization. Even the most monumental and seemingly eternal wonders of the universe are bound by the laws of time and decay. But there is a deep comfort in this. It reminds us that change is natural, that the universe is a fluid, evolving masterpiece, and that we are incredibly lucky to exist at the exact moment to witness its fading glory. Thank you for joining us on this peaceful journey through the dark. If you found comfort in the silence of space, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Before you drift off to sleep, let me ask you, if you could visit one dying wonder of the universe, where would you go?